Moody's maintains negative outlook on China's credit amid trade tensions. Trump delays 50% EU tariffs, sets July the 9th deadline for trade deal. And ECB President Lagarde says euro could become viable dollar alternative. Welcome to the Economic Bulletin with me, Al Hamalawi, and we start off with France and Vietnam, which have signed a 9 billion euros worth of contracts seeking to boost France's influence in its former colony amid risks of high U.S. tariffs. This came during a meeting with French President Emmanuel Macron and the Vietnamese top leader To Lam in Hanoi. During the meeting, a total of 14 deals were signed, which would be short of the dozens that the French presidential palace had said were in preparation before the visit. An official stated that more agreements were expected to be announced on May the 27th. Moody's has maintained its negative outlook on China's credit profile, citing growing concerns over sustained tensions with major trading partners. While affirming China's A1 credit rating, the agency noted a shift in the drivers of its outlook. The negative stance, initially prompted by risks tied to local government debt and state-owned enterprises, now reflects broader geopolitical and trade-related risks. Moody's elaborated that these risks have now receded following concentrated government policy and no longer weigh meaningfully on China's A1 rating. For its part, China's Ministry of Finance welcomed Moody's affirmation of the country's A1 sovereign bond rating on Monday, viewing it as a positive reflection of improving economic prospects. Moody's cited China's focus on high productivity sectors and potential innovation gains for the low credit risk rating. The ministry stated that government macroeconomic policies implemented since last year have led to improved economic indicators and stabilized market confidence. The ministry added that China will continue to focus on its own affairs regardless of external changes. Chinese Prime Minister Li Qiang has called for expanded trade and investment cooperation between China and Malaysia, with a particular focus on the digital economy, green economy, and artificial intelligence. Li made the remarks during a meeting with Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim in Kuala Lumpur. He added that China ready to work with Malaysia to safeguard free trade, multilateral trading system. Meanwhile, Malaysian Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has stated that Southeast Asian nations will forge a common front to face challenges, including economic headwinds from U.S. tariffs. Opening an annual summit of the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, Anwar has formed a task force to coordinate a response to the U.S. tariffs in parallel with bilateral negotiations by some member countries. Anwar announced that ASEAN leaders will meet on Tuesday with Chinese Prime Minister Li Qiang and the Gulf Cooperation Council. The first such tripartite meeting would spur new cooperation that could help insulate ASEAN's economy. U.S. President Donald Trump has backed off from imposing an immediate 50% tariff on EU imports next month, resorting a July 9th deadline for trade negotiations between Washington and the 27-nation bloc to produce a deal. The delay came after a call between Trump and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen on Sunday. Ursula von der Leyen informed Trump that the EU needed more time to come to an agreement. Trump highlighted that both leaders will rapidly get together and see if they can work something out. European Commission spokesperson Paula Pinho has stated that the phone call between EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and US President Donald Trump gave trade talks between the two blocs a new impetus. She added that EU Trade Commissioner Markus Šefčovič will have a call with US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick.
And from our side, we always said that we were ready to make a deal. Now, in terms of negotiations, as you know, we have a very good negotiating team in place, led by Commissioner Šefčovič, who is bringing forward the discussions. This was now the moment for a contact at President's level. And in the meantime, the discussions will continue as early as already this afternoon, where Commissioner Šefčovič will have a call with Secretary for Trade Lutnick.
On another note, U.S. President Donald Trump has indicated that he is not interested in reshoring textile manufacturing, preferring to focus on high-tech sectors like computer chips and defense equipment.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree. We're not looking to make sneakers and T-shirts. We want to make military equipment. We want to make big things. We want to do the AI thing with the computers and the many elements. But the textile, I'm not looking to make T-shirts, to be honest. I'm not looking to make socks. We can do that very well at other locations. We are looking to do chips and computers and lots of other things. And tanks and ships, meaning ships, yeah.
Moreover, U.S. President Donald Trump announced that he is weighing a plan to reallocate $3 billion in grant funding from Harvard University to trade schools nationwide. He noted that and giving it to trade schools across the United States. The statement made on Trump's Truth Social account comes just days after his administration barred Ivy League institutions from enrolling foreign students, a move that has drawn criticism from academic leaders and immigration advocates alike. And for further analysis, we're joined from Moscow by visiting lecturer at High School of Economics in Moscow, Mr. Rami Qalyoubi. Welcome to Qnews Economic Bulletin. Now, sir, let's start by asking you, how might reallocating $3 billion in grants from Harvard to trade schools reshape the U.S. education landscape?
Actually, I don't think that it will change the educational landscape a lot because the education system in the United States is highly commercialized and students have to pay tuition fees. So, but of course, it's an investment in the future, and Trump, being a businessman more than a politician, is interested in such socially important issues as creating jobs, professionals. So by all means, it's a positive sign, and it's much better than investing such money in developing new kinds of weapons or supporting military allies beyond the ocean.
Mm-hmm. So what are the potential legal or institutional challenges President Trump could actually face in implementing this proposal?
Actually, as in any country, there are institutional challenges that will be faced by Trump. One of them is deep state, which is not always putting a priority for the national interests, but rather its own commercial interests, such as oil plants or probably weapons plants. So, of course, Trump, since his first term in 2017, has been facing the American deep state. And during his first term, the deep state won in this confrontation. But now Trump is in his last term, as he cannot be re-elected according to the American Constitution, so he can take more brave decisions, either on internal questions or external as well.
Mm-hmm. So how do you interpret the decision to block Harvard from enrolling foreign students, especially in light of recent accusations against the university?
Foreign students in any country are a soft power of any state. Any student who gets his education in any country will be grateful for his country for the rest of his life, and will be loyal for his country, and will be like a non-official ambassador of the interests of this country abroad. So this is quite wise and long-term and far-looking decision.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Rami, how could recent U.S. policies affect the country's standing in global scientific research and innovation?
Actually, the United States are a leading country in the spheres of technology and education, even if there is some rivalship with the European Union and China. But, however, this will be like a great project, and it will be a part of Trump's vision, make America great again, and America is the first.
Mm-hmm. So is there evidence of a growing brain drain from the U.S. to Europe or Asia due to funding cuts or political pressure?
Oh, well, brain drain is like a quite natural process which has been happening and is happening and will continue to happen as every person seeks for a future for himself and for his children. So I don't think that this process will have a global effect. And actually, the developed countries are not much influenced by brain drain, because the countries which suffer from this problem are mainly rising and developing countries, and not the developed and rich countries.
Mm-hmm. Can Europe realistically attract top-tier U.S. researchers given the current salary and funding gaps?
I don't think so, because Europe is much more fragmented than the United States, but still there are some leading universities in Europe. But on the other hand, one of the advantages that the United States offer is that education is in English language, while in Europe each country has its own language. So yes, the Great Britain uses the English language, but it's much more expensive than other countries. So I don't think that the European countries can be a serious rival to the United States in this sphere at this period at least.
Mm-hmm. What specific policies or funding reforms would actually help European universities compete with U.S. institutions?
Actually, European universities offer a large number of scholarships. For example, in France, the education is all mainly free or quite cheap, even for foreign students. So, and On the other hand, this helps France to spread French language around the world. But on the other hand, still France cannot compete with the United States or Great Britain in terms of offering education in English language.
Do you see this as a rare opportunity for Europe to reposition itself as a global hub for science and AI research?
In theory, it's possible, but practically, I don't think so, because Europe is in a quite hard economic position, and there are actually immigration processes made like some waves of xenophobia in Europe. So foreign students are not much welcomed. So I don't think that it's possible in the near future.
From Moscow, that was visiting lecturer at Higher School of Economics in Moscow, Mr. Romil Karyubi. Thank you so much for your valuable insights. Moving on with our bulletin and back to our news. On another note, Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell defended the central bank's response to the COVID-19 pandemic in a Princeton University speech. Powell specifically defended the central bank's decision to cut its key interest rate to nearly zero in response to the pandemic. It also launched an asset purchase program that involved buying trillions of dollars of treasury bonds and mortgage-backed securities intended to keep longer-term interest rates low. He also praised government employees and U.S. universities that have been targeted by the Trump administration.
We lead the world in so many
The International Monetary Fund has expected the Gulf countries to post steady economic growth of around 1% annually in both 2025 and 2026. Dr. Jihad Azur, director of the IMF's Middle East and Central Asia Department, presented the fund's outlook for the region during an economic panel in Riyadh. Azur noted that despite persistent uncertainty, general economic recovery is anticipated across most countries in the region in 2025. He stressed that the rebound will be more robust among the oil-exporting economies, particularly within the GCC, where the non-oil sector is growing. Azur further downplayed the impact tariffs introduced, adding that the effect would be limited for most regional countries. The director of the Middle East and Central Asia Department at the International Monetary Fund, Dr. Jihad Azur, has revealed that a mission from the fund is heading to Syria. Azur added that the mission will be briefed on the reality of Syrian institutions to develop a comprehensive cooperation framework to provide technical advice and training of key cadres. Azur further explained that the conflicts in Gaza, the West Bank, Lebanon, and Syria have led to severe economic shocks and negatively affected the GDP of those countries. He considered that the region faces higher risks compared to others, which led to significant volatility in the markets after the announcement of tariffs. The General Authority for Statistics has shown that Saudi Arabia non-oil exports, including re-exports, rose 13.4% in the first quarter of 2025 to 80.73 billion Saudi riyals compared to the first quarter of 2024. Non-oil national exports, excluding re-exports, climbed 9% to 4.12 billion Saudi riyals, while re-exports surged 23.7% to 26.6 billion Saudi riyals. The share of oil in total exports dropped from 75.9% to 71.8%. Imports edged up 0.1% in March and rose 7.3% in the first quarter to 222.74 billion. Imports edged up 0.1% in March and rose 7.3% in the first quarter to 222.74 billion Saudi riyals. As a result, the trade surplus narrowed by 28% in the first quarter to 63.05 billion Saudi riyals. The Bank of Israel has kept its benchmark interest rate unchanged at 4.50% for the 11th consecutive meeting on Monday. The central bank cited high inflation as its chief concern, despite a moderate economic recovery amidst the war on Gaza. Israel's annual inflation rate rose to 3.6% in April, remaining above the government's from 1% to 3% target. The bank highlighted risks like geopolitical developments, supply constraints, and shekel volatility for potential inflation acceleration. ECB President Christine Lagarde has stated that the euro could become a viable alternative to the dollar, earning the 20-nation bloc immense benefits. During a speech in Berlin, she highlighted that the global economic order backed by the US dollar was fracturing and made a pitch for the euro as a global reserve currency. Lagarde argued that Europe needs a deeper, more liquid capital market, must bolster its legal foundations, and needs to underpin its commitment to open trade with security capabilities. She further added that any enhanced role for the euro must coincide with greater military strength that can back up partnerships.
And to reinforce the transmission of our policy rate increases to bank lending conditions.
In the meantime, the euro hit a one-month high against the dollar after U.S. President Donald Trump backed down from threatened 50% duties on European Union shipments from June the 1st, after the bloc asked for time to reach a good deal. The euro climbed as much as 0.55% to reach $1.1418 for the first time since April 29th. It was last up 0.36% on the day at $1.1394, bringing gains for the year so far to 10%. Moreover, the sterling rose by 0.39% to its highest level since February 2022 and was last up 0.25% on the day at $1.3574. Goldman Sachs has said that Chinese stocks could rise as the yuan strengthens, with every 1% appreciation boosting equities by 3%. The bank raised its yuan forecast to 7 per dollar, citing better earnings outlook and foreign inflows. Consumer property and broker shares are likely winners. The MSCI China Index has recovered recent losses, aided by a trade truce with the U.S., and the yuan hit a 6-month high, gaining 1.4% in May. Reuters has reported that NVIDIA is set to launch a new, more affordable artificial intelligence chipset for the Chinese market, with mass production anticipated as early as June. Priced between $6,500 and $8,000, this new chip features weaker specifications and simpler manufacturing, NVIDIA's adaptation to stringent U.S. export controls. This marks NVIDIA's third tailored chip for China, a market that comprises 13% of its sales, but where its market share has plummeted from 95% to 50% due to U.S. restrictions. In markets, stocks showed mixed performance in Asia and Europe as U.S. shares are off today on Memorial Day. In Europe, the UK's FTSE 100 dipped 0.24%, while Germany's DAX gained 1.52% and France's CAC 40 rose 1.14%. In Asia, Shanghai Composite Index inched down 0.05%, and the Hang Seng in Hong Kong was down 1.35%, while Japan's Nikkei 225 rose 1%. And that brings us to the end of our economic bulletin, and here is what we have been covering. Moody's maintains negative outlook on China's credit amid trade tensions. Trump delays 50% EU tariffs, sets July the 9th as a deadline for trade deal. And ECB President Lagarde says euro could become viable dollar alternative. And this concludes our economic bulletin. Don't forget to follow Q News on YouTube, Facebook, X, Instagram, and TikTok at QNewsEG to stay informed. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.